With the 2022 World Cup fast approaching, I thought it would be a great time to share with you a tactical report I undertook as part of my master's thesis, which is all about trying to find how France won the 2018 World Cup. And it was a very interesting project because France were actually ranked outside the top 15 teams for ball possession, final third entries, penalty area entries, and shots, and yet France became world champions. So, how did they manage to win it? Well, I attempted to find out in this project and I'll share my findings with you in this video. Before we start, however, let me introduce you to my new book. It's the 2022 Tactical Guide South American edition. And in this book, I analyze the 4 teams that will participate in Qatar. I predict we're going to have a South American winner of the competition for the first time in 20 years. Not only do we have the superpowers of Argentina and Brazil, but we also have the newly transformed Uruguay under new manager Diego Alonso, and we also have a very exciting and powerful Ecuador team who will join these 3 CONMEBOL participants who have the rising Premier League stars of Caicedo and Estupiñán, both currently playing for Brighton. So if you're interested in international tactics and you're looking forward, like I am, to the World Cup, then this book really is for you. And you can buy it by clicking on the link below and it'll be yours in no time. The possession statistics I collected provided a very good initial idea of France's overall match strategy. You can see here on the bar chart that against Argentina, against Belgium, and against Croatia, they had significantly less possession of the ball than their opponents. Overall, across the 4 matches, they averaged about 45% possession. So it appeared that France preferred a much more direct approach with fast attacks rather than a possession-based approach to the game. And France's success with limited possession is further evidence against the popular belief that higher ball possession enhances the probability of winning in football. We know that nowadays that is simply not true, and you can be a very effective team with less possession of the ball than your opponents. However, having said this, whilst in general France preferred a more direct approach to their attack with limited possession of the ball against Uruguay, and when losing against Argentina, they had much more possession than their opponents. So, in general, when they were drawing, when they were in a winning position, they were happy not to have the ball, and when they did win the ball, to generate fast attacks. However, when they were losing, or when they were playing against Uruguay, which they deemed to be a significantly inferior team to them, they wanted, in fact, to have more of the ball, to have more control of the game in this respect. Let's now dig a little bit deeper and identify the defensive strategy France employed in Russia. Often, researchers in academia often use data to support the identification of strategies. And in this respect, Navarro, for example, uses location of regains to identify the defensive strategy, and it's very simple in concept. If they regain the ball high up the pitch, they are more likely to be a high pressing team, and if lots of their regains happen near their own goal, they're likely to be a team that prefers to defend deep. And from the data I gathered, I saw that France regained them only 6% of the time in the attacking third, but a considerable amount more in the defensive third. 61% of regains occurred in the defensive third across all the 4 knockout games. So this means that France, when out of possession, they didn't look to press high. and instead they preferred to be compact in their defensive half so they could regain it and then from there generate a fast attack. So what did their low defensive block look like? Well, from the clip to the next slides, you will be able to see how France were very compact both vertically and horizontally. By vertical compactness, we mean the distance between the back line and the front line. And this was achieved by the France forwards, Griezmann and Giroud, dropping off to reduce the distance between the midfield line and themselves. And this made France very compact within their block. For example, here you can see a distance of 6, 12, 18, 24, less than 25 meters compact vertically. And in terms of horizontal compactness, which is the distance between the right side of their defense and left side of their defense, you can see they're also very narrow. And this was achieved through the weak side players shifting inside to reduce those distances and prevent those passes going through their lines. And so these shifts from their strikers and the weak side players allowed France to have numerical superiority in central areas, which was a key factor influencing their success in defense. And within this defensive structure, they aimed to divert their position attacks wide and away from danger. Let me show you some examples of France's low defensive block. Here is their lineup against Argentina. Now remember, something that France prioritized is to have an overload at the back. And here they have 4 back players against Argentina's 3 forward players. And in order for this to happen, there obviously needs to be an underload elsewhere. And France preferred to have that underload up the pitch. So here we have Giroud and Griezmann defending 2v3 against Argentina's centre backs and Argentina's defensive midfielder Mascherano. And as you'll see in the following clip, you can see how Giroud and Griezmann do not press and instead they focus on defending the space where Mascherano is and with the intention of keeping the play out wide. In this clip, notice how Giroud and Griezmann put almost no pressure on Argentina's centre-backs and instead they force play out wide on the right side of the pitch. But once the ball is on the right side, they lock them there. Giroud pushes up, stops the switch and forces play long. So they don't only force the play wide, but also keep the ball out wide and don't allow switches of play. Another key aspect was France's high pressure from the back line. Because they had the overload, they had the freedom to be able to press aggressively because they knew they had cover at the back. So if we play the clip one more time, you can see how as Argentina played to their right winger, France's left back Hernandez puts immediate pressure to stop him from turning and keeps play back. And then again, once more, Varane pushes up, presses Argentina's centre forward, and then Pogba and Kante regain possession through that overload in the middle. Against Belgium, we can see a very similar defensive strategy employed. Here you can see how Giroud and Griezmann and Mbappe dropping off and protecting the space in the midfield area. You can see how close they are to Pogba, to Matuidi, to N'Golo Kante. And here is their strategy. Underload in the forward areas, overload in the back areas, and once they do play forward, France are able to regain possession. Naturally, given France's strategy was to be compact in the middle and force play out wide, they needed to be able to defend out wide effectively. And there were 3 main factors that enable France to defend crosses effectively. Factor number 1 was that they limited the time and space for the player on the ball. So you will notice in the clips that I'll show you how the crosser had very little time and space to get the head up and pick out a successful cross due to high pressure from the fullbacks. Furthermore, all opposition players who were in dangerous goal scoring positions were always marked. They were marked ball side, they were marked goal side, and they were marked tightly. And finally, the midfield line would also drop back and defend the space in front of the back line. And these three factors simultaneously ensured that France were very effective in defending crosses. Let's show you some examples now. Here you can see France defending against Argentina, trying to hold out the lead with 15 minutes to go. You can see how Argentina's forwards are all marked and the midfield line is close. In the second clip, you can clearly see that the crosser has a limited time and space. You can see how Hernandez is pushing out, stopping any kind of cross, and there you can see how the midfield line drop off to reduce that space in front of France's centre backs, and this helped them defend the cross effectively. Another example here, again Hernandez pushing really close, pressing high, and finally again Pavard pushing up, reducing that time and space for the boy to pick out an effective cross. And you can see the tight marking from France's centre backs on Fellaini, on Lukaku, and on other key forwards. So how successful was France's defensive strategy? Well, from a subjective view, as we saw in the clips, it appeared that France was a very well organised and very effective in both central and wide areas near the goal. And the objective data certainly supports this. You can see in the image here how many crosses were attempted by the four opposition teams: Argentina 14, Uruguay 20, Belgium 20, Croatia 20. But very few of those crosses were successful. In fact, Uruguay and Argentina were not successful in any one of their crosses. And this data reinforces what we know from the literature. It's interesting, but it's true that the more crosses a team executes, the more likely they are to lose. So even though 42% of open play goals do come from crosses and cutbacks, they need to be of high quality. If you are constantly getting the ball in wide areas and you're crossing it in without much success, you're unlikely to be successful and win the game. So you need to have the balance. You need to be able to recognize the importance of wide attacks, and then from there be able to your team to create effective opportunities and get players into good positions to score from crosses and cutbacks. So to conclude the defensive component of this analysis, I would like to present you some more data. According to the FIFA's World Cup technical report, the average team made an average of 33 penalty area entries. France, despite the low defensive block, were able to limit their opponents to half the amount against Argentina, Uruguay, and Belgium. Moreover, they limited opponents, which all ranked, remember, in the top 20 FIFA rankings prior to the tournament, to very few good chances. So in general, we can say that France's strategy and the implementation of their strategy was very effective. So if your team wants to play with a low defensive block, then France, of the team that won in 2018, is a good team to analyze and a good team to get lots of good lessons from.